Broadcasting from the commodity capital of the world, Zurich, Switzerland, this is Insider's Guide to Energy.
Insider's Guide to Energy, ETRM Mini-Series, brought to you by Fidectus, where post-trading matters, and Falls and independent management and consulting boutique, creating impacts for clients and markets.
Welcome to Insider's Guide to Energy, educational mini-series. Today we have with us PSI, and from PSI we have Miguel Haischer and Roman Masannek. Roman, how do I say last name? I apologize.
Yeah, Roman Masannek.
Masannek, yeah, genau. Okay, I should have said that. Well, welcome to the program. Sorry about murdering your names, but I've been known to do that in time. Our audience has been listening along, knows that we are talking to ETRM vendors, and we're talking about what's happening in the industry. But before we go there, why don't we find out a little bit about who PSI is and what do you do?
Well, thanks a lot, Chris. We're very lucky and happy to talk to you about this interesting topic. This is basically our business life. PSI Energy Markets, the company that Roman and I are representing here, is a subsidiary of a larger company, PSI Software AG, which is a, let's say, typical medium-sized software company, Germany-based, but with now international locations, roughly 30 offices around the world. We exist for more than 50 years, making us one of the oldest software companies in Germany. There are only two more that have lived for that long, but we are still in, we think, on the forefront of progress. Basically, one of the biggest parts of our business is energy. We offer solutions for most parts of the energy industry. And as we sit here, Roman and I, we offer an ETRM system, which is called PSI Market, that is mainly used by customers in Central, Western, but also some Eastern European countries. And we are happy to give you some more insights into our product.
Well, welcome. It's interesting. 50 years in the software business. That's a pretty impressive record. But it maybe leads to the opening part of the show that we tend to talk about. When we decided to do the ETRM mini-series, one of the reasons we did it is we've seen an evolution in ETRM. We see a crowded space and a lot of folks talking about change and perhaps changing what's going on in ETRM. And so from your perspective, and as a 50-year-old company, I'm sure you're always keeping your eye on the pulse of what's changing. Are things changing? And what do you see happening in the market today, specific to ETRM?
Well, crowded space, you named it, Chris. I haven't experienced all the 50 years of that development. I even haven't experienced the last 20 years. That is the time when PSI started developing software systems for energy trading and energy sales. You may remember about 20 years ago, I think it was exactly in 98 or 99, in Germany, the market got liberalized. And our company actually was the first one to provide a solution for that field. Well, since then, the market has changed dramatically. It's a crowded space, as you said. We perceive a very, very competitive market, a very dynamic market. And this competitiveness and also dynamics, they come from both sides, as well from the supplier side or the vendor side where we are, but also from our customers. Let's have a look at the customers. They face a very, very rapidly changing environment due to energy transition, due to changing regulatory rules, but also, of course, a lot of cost pressure. And recently you see the spikes in energy prices. For our customers, it's definitely a difficult time. Utilities have had, let's say, more comfortable times than they have now. This is one thing that makes the market competitive. However, on the vendor side, we see an interesting thing. Even although in general market, I would call it's a market that is consolidating. We have many competitors. We have large established ones like the big Anglo-American companies, but also regional ones. And even although we think it's already very crowded, still a lot of new competitors, startups, companies with new business models, also companies with very innovative technology join the market. So all those companies are trying to get the market share, and well, it's very challenging, but also very interesting.
So I heard you saying that, yeah, obviously the market gets more and more crowded, and also startups, and not just I think one or two. We can also see that there's more of them are now entering the market. But do you have somehow an opinion why this is the case in a market that is already crowded, where there are some bigger players in the market that, from my point of view, to some extent, in the past years have dominated the whole playground? So why is it the case that there are now new startups coming in?
Well, I think there are two major reasons. First of all, the energy market itself is changing rapidly. So the decentral, decarbonized energy world, the typical, what we call in Germany, Energiewende, the energy transition, creates new business models, whether sustainable or not. But it creates new business models, therefore new opportunities, and that, of course, attracts new companies, new startups. Secondly, there are many things going on in terms of technology. We have that trend towards cloud solutions. In other business areas, you have companies like ServiceNow who offer completely new operating models, are very successful with that. In the energy market, we have companies like PowerCloud who start offering that kind of operating model to energy companies. So the technology side also offers a lot of opportunities, and that makes it attractive for startups. Still, what they encounter there is not a market that has waited for new competitors. It's a very crowded, very competitive market.
So yeah, I would completely subscribe to that. I think it's always difficult as a vendor to convince a whole organization of a new technology behind that. But in all that, I mean, all that development of new technologies and new business models, especially from a technology point of view, as you mentioned, cloud-based solutions, probably also moving towards service-based architectures. What is your standpoint? What is PSI offering in that rapidly changing environment?
Well, basically, first of all, our product for the ETRM market, which is called PSI Market, is a fully fledged ETRM system that covers, let's say, more or less the full value chain of energy trading and also sales. We started, of course, when the product started some years ago, it was developed as an on-premise product that was operated in the traditional way. Recently, of course, we see the demand of customers, or at least they ask for possibilities to use new technologies. However, I have to say right now, after all, I think our customers in the utilities industry are rather conservative. Maybe due to the culture of safety and reliability in that industry, maybe they tend to be rather careful in adopting such new solutions. So for the last, let's say, 5 years, we were consistently asked whether we could offer our system as a cloud-based solution. It only happened, let's say, in the last 2 years that it finally took place, that clients said, well, now we are at the point where we move our system to the cloud or where we implement a new system in the cloud. And I think later on you will have that topic in more detail. Basically, I would say, well, we offer a fully fledged ETRM system that can be operated both on-premise or as a cloud-based service with different, of course, different scopes of service. What is important, what differentiates us very much from many competitors is that we have the ambition, and we stand up to that ambition, to deliver us a highly flexible system that doesn't need coding during the implementation. Let's say 99.9%. Well, there's still a little bit left over, but the overwhelming part of the business requirements of our customers can be satisfied by our standard system just by configuration. We don't need excessive coding software development during an implementation project. And that makes the system extremely flexible, but it makes it also very, very cost efficient, because you don't have the problems with expensive upgrade projects with release changes that consume a lot of effort. The system is a standard system that is made in an extremely flexible and configurable way. And last but not least, well, I said our company, the PSI Software AG exists now for more than 50 years. Well, after all, we are not a startup, not at all. We are a company that has established itself for many decades in the market. Many utilities, energy companies rely on our systems, and we can give the guarantee that we will exist for many more years, and therefore that we will operate and support our systems for many more years, which is, I think, in that market, after all, an important argument.
So I've heard a couple messages there. I heard that you didn't see your customers quite ready to move to the cloud before 2 years ago, and then that's kind of accelerated. That the demand for cloud is now. I think, is that correct assumption? Did I hear that correctly?
If it's 2 or 3 years, but well, basically they are not the early adopters. Our clients were not the early adopters. They were interested, they were looking at the topic, and now 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe they started really moving their systems to cloud infrastructure. Yeah.
Okay. And then I think what I also heard you say is that you've productized your solution such that there's not a lot of need to create customization, that you can use the knobs or the tools that basically come with your platform to meet your customers' needs. That's what I understood. Is that safe?
Absolutely. I think this is one of the main differentiators of our product. We can use the standard system, have many means for customizing it to the client's needs, but the clients can do that also on their own. It does not need coding in the project.
Okay. So I get that. Then I guess in a crowded space where it seems that change is rapidly or going faster, right? So if I look at legacy infrastructure and the old way we did software, and pretty much everybody on this call looks like we've been around long enough to know old ways of doing software, more monolithic code. As we move to more modular code, things tend to progress much quicker. And so how easy is that to keep up with what's going on in the market? So, you know, what I hear is that sounds very nice for many of the energy traders I know that are very conservative. They don't want to be first to market. They want to have something tried and true. But at the same time, I see the pace of change going fast. So how do you live with that? Do you do agile development now? Are you doing things in a different way? So how are you keeping up with the pace of the market, with understanding that you have a footprint, you know, a large install base that you have to keep happy?
Well, one important point is that we are very, very careful to keep our installed base close in terms of having the same release installed, going through the same cycles of release upgrades and so on. That makes it much easier to keep them azure, because if you have 50 different installations, well, this will drive you crazy. So we are very, very careful about keeping our installed base, let us call it closely, in a close release situation. The second point is, well, I'm pretty sure we could not follow all the technological developments and all that if we haven't had our mother company, PSI Software AG. PSI overall has more than 2,000 employees, most of them developers, and all the different subsidiaries of PSI share the same software platform. This is a framework that PSI is developing on our own, giving us also some advantages compared to competitor products. And so our group, our mother company, makes sure that our framework is integrating the newest technological developments. I'm pretty sure we couldn't do that on our own, just as PSI Energy Markets, but using the technology of our group helps us to keep our software in pace with recent technology developments.
I also like to add a point. So we surely don't jump on every trend the IT industry is giving us. But we have our customers, and we have installed a so-called user conference where we meet up our clients like two times, 3 times a year, and we discuss developments, things we see we would like to implement in the product, and what those customers think about that. And the customers themselves, they can also open up topics, like present them, that we take over and put them on our development guide, so-called software guideline. And then we take on that and form in common statements and develop our own. Well, that's the point where I should say, repeating the answer. What's the thing? What I wanted to say is we have behind this.
Roman, let me jump in.
Yeah.
What you want to say is it's important for us as well as our clients to carefully pick what market developments and what technology developments have to be realized in our product. And we do that also using the advice of our customers that meet about once a quarter in our so-called user conference. And this helps us a lot to understand what is really on the priority list of our clients. Therefore, we focus our resources on those topics. But as you said before, maybe this closes the circle. Our clients aren't the typical early adopters. They are very careful in choosing what technology to use and what development to follow.
Great.
Yeah, I would completely subscribe looking into the energy trading industry. But so I understood that you have you established a very close relationship in form of your user forum to your clients to understand their needs, especially also when it comes to what they want to move forward or in what direction they want to move forward when it comes to technology developments. And that actually brings me to the next topic that is related to it. I think once clients in the energy trading industry have decided that they move, let's say, from on-premise to cloud, they also still worried, which makes sense, how to get there. So the whole migration from on-premise to cloud, and that's not something I think that is quite established from an approach point of view. So how do you do that? How you get there? So my question is, what does PSI offer in terms of migrating from on-premise to cloud? Do you offer a certain migration roadmap strategy where you are very close aligned with the client and help them to set up the project and go through the project with them? Or do you leave that mainly to the client to figure it out potentially with external support that are experienced in that field?
Yeah, first of all, the challenges are mainly on customer side in terms of having the guts for a truly cloud-based solution. The energy industry, as we said, acts as a very conservatively and risk-averse on this topic. And customers who decide to go in the cloud with us can choose different service scope from the provision of technical infrastructure to full application service. The big challenge is using the option and offering a cloud service like AWS without getting locked in. Meaning that if we decide or we counsel a customer to go the way with us for a cloud installation, that we take on services who doesn't make the customer um, to be locked in this cloud environment. That he also have the option to change it one day and not taking the services just this cloud provider offers.
You maybe may I add some things? You asked about the help we provide or the support we provide for our customers when they make that move. Well, basically, there are different ways, and clients choose different approaches. Some clients do that all on their own, which is fine for us. But if they need help, we can offer various scopes of support. First of all, we help them choosing the appropriate cloud provider, where you have, of course, the typical options: AWS, Microsoft Azure, but also we can offer a special private cloud run by PSI or by a subsidiary of us. And then I think the most important question in that process is to decide whether you want just to have a simple lift and shift approach, where you take the system as it is to the new cloud environment, which is actually rather simple. Most systems or all the systems we show in fairs or in client presentations are on a cloud installation, so it doesn't make any difference. But if you want to really utilize the benefits that are provided by a cloud environment, you have to go a little bit deeper into that and choose what services of the cloud provider you want to use. And as Roman said, some of these services, they tend to be sticky. If you get into it too deeply, you might not find out again anymore, which is okay if you want to stay with the same cloud provider for the rest of your system's life. But maybe you want to keep some options, and maybe you want to change the cloud provider after 5 years. And this makes it somewhat tricky. And we help our customers to decide how deeply do they want to get into a certain cloud service system, let us call it like that. What services should they use? How can they optimize the system by using cloud services?
Okay, great. Thanks. That makes it clearer now. So you basically either leave it to the client if they have the expertise as well and want so, but you are definitely able to provide them support in the whole technology move.
Absolutely.
Okay. Which brings me to a topic that is related. I think it's more about utilizing a cloud setup. That is also, I think, a development that you can see clearly in the market. What I mean explicitly is a more web service based architectures where clients onboard more and more know-how in coding their own functionality, no matter if it's in Python or in any other programming language. And I think cloud setup provides some benefits to that development, like establishing a development framework, a deployment framework, where you put the code on the production environment. And so my concrete question is, how does the PSI market software looks in that regards? Is it like you can choose as a client different functionalities or services that you want to use or not use? And do you also have the possibility to develop your own services that you can integrate and with the basis of the PSI market, the basis modules?
Roman, would you step in?
Right. So there are customers who have the capability to implement their business on already existing platforms. However, we've made the experience that the energy industry is, as we said, is quite conservative in a respect, and we are highly satisfied with the flexibility of our ETRM system that can do things like this already. However, so as the system is quite flexible, the customers find their way to implement new business models without taking those platforms were coming up. So nevertheless, yeah, that's it actually.
Yeah, but that brings me to maybe a more detailed question then, because that's I think something that the clients are really looking into, at least the ones that have coding experience. So do you provide like something like an integrated development environment, or in general maybe a development environment based on standard industry components that you can roll out to the clients and tell them, here, that's your environment, here you can code in Python or whatever and build your own services that are somehow maybe by nature already integrated then in the PSI market system?
Well, good point. Well, there are two ways how currently the clients can handle that. First of all, our system is very, very open to interfaces to surrounding systems, but also to client developments by web services, by standard APIs. So what we have quite often is that clients say, for example, well, your risk management, we like it a lot, but there are still 3 or 4 more risk KPIs that we developed on our own and that we think that are relevant for competition. We don't want to share that with other users of the system. Therefore, we would like to connect our Python or MATLAB routines to your system. And this is done actually by quite many of our clients. They have little MATLAB routines. They get fed by data from our system, get the data, the figures from contracts. They do some calculation, for example, some risk KPI, and they feed it back into the system. We have a special mechanism which is called Interface Manager that allows our clients to build those interfaces without coding, just by, let's call it a wizard, like, you know, the typical wizards in Microsoft Office or in Microsoft Windows. This interface manager basically works like a wizard, and the customers can connect their own applications to our system with that very simple way. The second very, very important option or possibility for our clients to adapt the system is based on the technology I mentioned from our group. Actually, it will be fully usable in our next release, which is called, we call it click design. That means that the screens, the GUI of our system is not fixed as we deliver it. We deliver a standard GUI, but the clients can adapt it just by clicking. They can, without coding, they can build their own screens, their own GUI, and this doesn't require any coding. Other PSI products already use that capability. The clients are enthusiastic about them because instead of having us doing some change and paying some money for programming, they can do it on their own. And the last point that you actually mentioned, or that I think that is most important for you, how to build up a system based on, some call it microservices, but also small modules. This is development we observe very closely. There are parts of our system that already can be used as a, let's call it microservice, or not so microservice, larger service. We will go most probably more towards that direction. However, frankly, I hear clients very often speaking about it, but I haven't seen a fully fledged system that is built like that. So before we advise our customers to go that way, we really would like to observe it a little bit longer and to see whether this will really work out in the end. So we think it's something definitely we have to observe, and where we also spent already some development effort, but I'm not so sure whether it will turn out in the end this way.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we can see in the next years. But I can see that there's a trend. But as you mentioned, it really depends strongly on the know-how that clients have and also the willingness to move into that direction. Maybe then in that context, at least from my side, last question on the whole topics, cloud infrastructure and ecosystems where you tend to have or build microservices. So understood that your solution is being slowly developed also towards more microservice architecture. But when it comes to services that PSI might not be able to provide, like a specific, I don't know, risk engine or valuation engine, do you have some partners that are providing that services and that you're integrating already today into your solution? So like a cooperation or a partnership?
Well, one very obvious example is the entire topic of regulatory reporting. There we have a partner that connects to our system and handles REMIT EMIR reports. An upcoming topic will be, well, it also relates to ECM, electronic confirmation matching, but we see in that topic, we see really big potential. The next step will be ESM, and we are talking to, I think, all the relevant suppliers in that market, and we will adapt, or we will connect our system to these platforms, because this is something we don't want to develop on our own. There definitely it's good to have platforms that comprise the entire market. And these are typical examples where we work with partners. Then there are other areas. You mentioned risk management. Of course, there are specialized risk management applications, tools. We wouldn't partner with those companies because, after all, those are competitors, unlike the ones I mentioned before. But we can connect them to our system very often, very easily, due to that tool I mentioned before, Interface Manager. So we can connect to literally all the specialized tools that are in the market, some of them being partners, some of them being competitors.
Okay. So I think we have covered the areas of cloud solutions or and also ecosystems and microservices quite well now in the past minutes. So let's shift gears a bit and maybe look into more the business challenges that, at least from our point of view, the industry has to cope currently. I think, Michael, you mentioned it at the very beginning already, renewables or the energy transition, Energiewende is definitely something that is keeping them busy. So I think it's quite obvious that there's more and more, or a bigger part of renewables, not just in Europe, but globally, and also more complex structures that come with it, like PPAs is for sure a good example, but also GOs that is heavily or strongly connected, also managing the whole CO2 inventory. And I can see at least that this is something that clients look into deeply, and where they also need new system support, at least more flexible functionality, for example, to capture structured deals in PPA business, and also other topics like valuation and risk management. So how do you see that whole development? I mean, Energiewende, especially from your client's point of view, what challenges does it create for them? And what is your answer as PSI towards that development?
Well, doing business in the German energy industry, well, you can't escape from all those topics related to Energiewende, to energy transition, renewables, and so on. And most of our clients, they have to deal with that. So luckily, we have implemented, I think, all the mechanisms you mentioned, PPAs, GOOs, CO2 certificates, all that is implemented in our system. CO2 certificates are traded like any other commodity. The clients just choose that as a commodity and they can trade it. The GOOs, with the nice German word Herkunftszertifikate, this has been implemented, I think, 7 or 8 years ago when we had the first client. By the way, from a city that is well known for its green policy. Therefore, the local utility, of course, also has to offer a lot of green products. And for them, it was very, very important to have the GOOs in the system. So we have also implemented that, and that is ready to use. PPAs is a very interesting case. About 2 years ago, I think, rather recently, we implemented our system for a company that sells wind power. They trade with wind energy that fell off the feed-in tariff regime. So they have to really sell it on the market. And typically this is done via PPAs that have rather complicated structure and price calculations. And fortunately, our system is really perfectly suited to that, because we can, out of the standard, we can implement very, very complicated and sophisticated contract structures, but also price calculations. So PPAs is used in our system. With CO2, that we have one more special topic. Well, trading CO2 certificates is, well, I would say rather commodity trading. Now we have more and more the additional topic of CO2 footprint. In the last years, we got more customers from large industrial companies, chemistry, steel production, and now they look for options to also to manage the overall CO2 footprint of their company within a system. Right now, we have talks with some customers about that. We're still not there. This is something that is still, after all, different from trading, but there are many similarities with a trading system. So it might be possible that in the next 1 or 2 years, we also offer functionality to manage CO2 footprint. But overall, the renewable topics, they are, for our clients, I guess they are challenging. However, fortunately, we are able to support them in that area.
So with the renewables, were there considerations of performance or characteristics that changed the way your system needed to behave? So you said you've been doing some of this for some time. Did it change performance characteristics required for your system?
Well, one important performance is a good topic. Thanks for bringing that up, Chris. What we have, of course, renewables also spurred the intraday, the short-term market, and more energy trading goes towards the direction of, let's call it, high-frequency trading. That wasn't the case 5 years ago. 5 years ago, they started seeing that development. And what we see in our system is what the clients also, keeps the clients busy is the performance requirements go up dramatically. Because earlier you had a maybe large number of some contracts, but now it multiplies. You have much more contracts and transactions, and this requires much higher calculation performance. Well, fortunately, we can keep up with that, but it keeps us busy, definitely. We regularly have performance benchmarks, do performance tests with our clients, and check whether the increased deal volume can be processed by the system. So far, everything is fine. The architecture of our system allows for even higher volumes, but definitely it keeps us busy.
So that's good to know, because I think that number of trades and volumes will increase also in the future, especially by one topic that you mentioned already, automation, and very specifically automated trading. I think you call it high frequency trading. Definitely on the rise in Europe, I would say. So what I can see is that more and more clients do not just look into a stable execution of very simple strategies, but they are also more and more interested, some clients, to really develop their own strategies and monitor markets, like market signals, and then based on that derive strategies that they build themselves. Then the question from my point of view is, does an ETRM system serve as, at the end, the storage or the database for the trades, or does it maybe also provide some functionalities to support that whole topic, automated trading, like building, for example, a framework, a data analytics framework that allows benchmarking or backtesting strategies that they have developed, or even an own development framework where they code their strategies. I think that's quite on the front-running side when we talk about an ETRM system, or maybe a platform. But maybe you can elaborate your view on that general development, where you think that goes in the future, that clients build their own, let's call it ecosystem or a framework to develop strategies, and whether PSI is already now providing some solutions to that, or maybe in the future.
Well, it's very good you mentioned that, Martin. There is an interesting development going on within our company. So far, let's say up to now or up to last year, we really kept our ETRM system being a database, a calculation machine for storing and evaluating and processing contracts. We kept away from these front office topics for some good reasons, of course, but we strictly separated the kind of world of the front office and all the analytics from the world of contract management, processing of all these data. Well, for the last year, we started a development. Basically, first of all, it's an algo trading tool. For some reasons, we had a partnership earlier with some supplier for such tool, and for some reasons, the partnership was terminated. So we had the need to develop something on our own, and it turned out that it will exactly go towards that direction that you've mentioned, not offering some kind of, well, predefined strategies and tools, but providing a development framework where the customers can implement their own trading strategies for an algo trader. And the very interesting thing that I think is pretty much different from everything else in the market, you can, if you want to implement Python routines, you can do that. But our tool has a front end that allows to define strategies in a very intuitive way. Let's call it by shifting little levers and defining the KPIs and the objectives we want to achieve. And then we have it's a proprietary artificial intelligence and fuzzy logic technology that is used throughout our group called Qualicision, developed by our colleagues in Dortmund. And that technology translates kind of the objectives that an energy trader wants to achieve. It translates it to algorithms. So it offers our clients possibilities to either implement Python code if they want, but also to define strategies in a very intuitive way without any coding. And we are currently in the last stages of testing that tool that will be integrated in our ETRM system. It also will relate to some data analytics routines, mostly taken by tools like R. And I guess we will present that. Well, I don't know whether eWorld will take place, but around that time, we will send out the first communication to that tool. We also have the first pilot customer who wants to implement that. And I'm pretty sure we can offer rather unique tool set to define trading strategies and to support the front office.
Okay, that sounds definitely very, very interesting. But that brings me to maybe a bit of a detailed question, but I think a very important part in all that development. I mean, if I want to develop strategies as a trader, I need to make sure they work. So if I put them in production, you don't want to end up the next day having a big fire in your organization because the P&L is not good anymore. So usually you should test them sufficiently, which brings me to the topic back testing. And there, from my point of view, you need good data, not just trade data, but order book data. In that context, is that something that is also on your roadmap, that you provide at least a database that can save and store order book data and also reconstruct it anytime possible in order to let some strategies run on historical order book data?
Well, so far for data supply, well, I said so far, this is our current strategy. For data supply, we would rely on external partners. Our system can use all the data feeds you can imagine. And for the purpose of getting data input, we would discuss with the customer, what data feeds do you want to use? What are your suppliers for data? We can implement that in our system. Of course, we have the mechanisms to store those data, to process them, but for obtaining the data, this will be a topic that will be handled by partners or just service companies in the market.
Okay, thanks.
So I think we're going to bounce up against our time here of where we're at. I think we've got enough to be dangerous about your product. I think we've got a good flow so far. But what I want to do is switch gears and go into our speed round. And so the speed round is 10 questions. We've asked every participant of the ETRM Mini-Series these same questions. They're short answers. They don't necessarily need to be one word, but they basically concise answers is good. And if it's something you do, great. If it's something you don't do, great as well. It's just kind of a feeling out. We're going to alternate back and forth. I'm going to start by asking the first question, and then we'll go back and forth until we get through all 10. So, and I think you alluded to this earlier, but I'm going to ask the question for continuity. Will the number of vendors for ETRM solutions shrink or expand in the future?
On short term, it will expand. In the long term, it will shrink.
Okay, then second question. How many deals per minute must a modern ETRM system today be capable to import?
I would say thousands, but let's say 1,000.
Okay.
So what commodity types and energy types are you offering, and which ones would you consider your biggest strengths?
All you can imagine. And all of them are equally strong.
Okay. Then do you offer real-time position management module, and how real-time is it? So can it display new trades right away in the position overview?
Right now we offer what we call near real-time. It will be real-time in the next or in the second next release.
Okay.
Do you have an automated workflow or for straight-through processing?
We use a workflow engine, Camunda, which offers configurable workflows that can be defined by the customer.
Okay, then a bit more a technical question. Can your ETM solution price Asian options?
Not yet, since we aren't in the Asian market, but if a customer wants us to do that, I'm pretty sure we can do that.
All right. Are you offering a full integration and implementation service for your solution?
Sure.
Okay. Then what is the biggest threat for third-party ETRM vendors from your point of view, if there is any threat in the market out there?
You mean what third party is the biggest threat, or
Let's say the biggest challenges, or maybe also even a threat for third-party system vendors like PSI?
well, maybe that something like Power Cloud operating model will fully extend to our market, which they are still not in our market. They try to expand, but if they do it to a full extent, it will be a threat.
And why do you think will that be a threat?
Because they have huge amount of investor money.
Okay.
They don't need to report quarterly EBIT like we have to do.
All right. So what is your licensing model and like today? And do you think it's going to change in the future?
It already changed to a certain extent. Traditionally, we offer and we still offer one-time license payment plus maintenance, annual maintenance, plus, of course, implementation services. We already offer a monthly, quarterly, annual service fee where the license then is kind of extended to the duration of the usage of the system.
Got it.
Okay, then last question. Are you offering an API, and what is the technology behind it?
I'm not the technician, but what I always hear from my colleagues is that we use mostly web services for APIs, and well, customers connect many systems to our system. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that concludes the 10 questions. I think we've been for a nice overview of PSI. Just in conclusion, maybe give you a minute or so just to bring your thoughts together and let our audience know any final thoughts you have on your company and why they should be looking at PSI, or maybe visit you if eWorld does take place at eWorld.
Well, we think it's a very, very interesting market we are all in, our clients as well as the vendors like us. From our point of view, the clients have the challenge to do sometimes large investments in a very, very uncertain environment. And therefore, we would advise them to look for a solution for a vendor that keeps you maximum flexibility for future developments, of course, at reasonable cost. And we think we offer a very, very big degree of flexibility at very reasonable lifecycle cost. And therefore, we think there is an interesting market for us and we can offer large value for our clients.
Well, thank you so much for sharing the PSI story with our audience today. Thank you for being on the program. For our audience, that concludes this episode of the ETRM Mini-Series. Hopefully you're enjoying this series. We encourage you to listen to all the vendors and hear what the differences are, make up your own mind of what works for your business. And we look forward to seeing you, hopefully at eWorld, if you're listening to this, that it's still going on as of this recording. So we're excited about that. And feel free to find out more at insidersguidetoenergy.com. Thank you.